Hi, I'm Mary Elizabeth Williams, and this is Patient, and this is Dr. Suzanne Gilberg. I'm so excited to get to talk to you again, Dr.
It's
Gilberg.
great
It's
to see
been a
you.
while.
I know.
I know it's been a while, so much to catch up on. She is a board certified OB-GYN. She is the chief clinical officer of Monarch Care and the founder of Menopause Boot Camp. She's also the author of the book of the same name. We're going to get into all of it, but I want to start the way I always like to start because I know a little bit about your story. I think I know what you're going to say, but you tell me, what was the healthcare experience that radicalized you?
Oh my God. Well, I mean, you know what? It's funny. I mean, I think the one that you're probably thinking of is my breast cancer diagnosis at 47, which definitely changed my life. But you know what? I'm gonna go off script. In reality, the healthcare experience that radicalized me was the birth of my first child, who just turned 28. I was a resident. I was an OB-GYN resident at a wonderful, prestigious program here in Los Angeles, Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, it's a UCLA affiliate. And what I noticed while I got pregnant very early in my first year, and it was a very high volume OB floor. So we were seeing lots and lots of patients, lots of different kinds of patients, despite the fact that like you might think Cedars is just, fancy movie stars. It was a very diverse population. And I started noticing that, what I learned and thought was a physiologic experience that is very high risk, was being treated in a way that didn't seem to work for me. Just being honest, like, and then I was a pregnant person too. And I thought, why are people's questions being dismissed? Why are women who want to try to do this without a lot of intervention, but are, in the hospital and understand medical care is important, why are they being denigrated, honestly? If you came in at the time, so this is like, I started my residency in 1996. If you in with a doula and a birth plan, it was just like open warfare. Like people would go into the nurse's station and roll their eyes. And, there was some hostility coming from that side, like as if I understood why people were offended. They were like, the hospital staff was like, we're literally here to help you and serve you. We're not trying to harm you. And so some people were coming in with a lot of hostility, which was based on real experiences, but there was just no capacity to communicate. And now I found myself in the middle of that environment trying to learn how to be a good doctor, and I'm pregnant. And I took a very radical at the time, natural childbirth class with my husband at the time, and was undercover. Nobody knew I was an OB resident. And I really wanted to do it on my own. I was a young, healthy woman. And when I came into labor, and my physician is a wonderful human being, but very old school, they threw everything out the window. There was literally nothing wrong with me. I was
Mhm.
31 years old. I think my blood pressure was a little high because I was stressed, but I didn't actually need to be treated. There was nothing going on. And my labor progress was going fine. And she broke my water and she put a scalp electrode on the baby to measure his heart rate for what reason, I don't know, and gave me Pitocin. And I went really fast and surprised her. I pushed 3 times and he was out. And it still was the best day of my life. But later on, my ex-husband revealed to me that he had been trying to advocate on my behalf, like, hey, could you explain to me why you need to do this to Suzanne? Is this an emergency or can we talk about it? And he just got brushed aside. And I didn't need any of those interventions, none of them. I would have been in labor and delivery longer. I was in labor and delivery, Mary Elizabeth, for first time. I was there for like, I think I was there for like 10 hours, maybe. I came in at 3 in the morning. I delivered him at 8 in the morning. Hello, first
Well,
baby,
yeah.
fast. By the way, I almost accidentally had my second baby at home. So homegirl didn't need all that.
Right. Oh,
And it
no.
really changed me. It changed me. I still appreciated and respected and loved my medical colleagues and nurses. And when I came out into practice, I knew I needed to be an advocate for my patients because I knew that despite people's best intentions, they were doing things that they really did. They were being extra and they didn't need to do all those things. And I developed a reputation rapidly for being very well trained conventionally. I was respected and am respected as a conventional physician. I wasn't like going and doing breech deliveries at home and some crazy shit, which I don't approve of because I know people who do that. But I also was known to be very protective of my patients and give them the space that they needed to understand what was going on and whether or not something needed to happen or not.
That's the thing is, does it need to happen, or is this just, I'm in this I'm in this system that has these protocols.
Yeah.
And as you and I know, when you're in labor, that is just a wild experience. Your
Yeah, you're
body is
super vulnerable.
right. You're
You're
so
really at the
vulnerable.
mercy of whoever is. I mean, unfortunately, this week, like, hello, it's Tuesday, you know? I mean, we've seen another round of viral videos of Black women specifically being absolutely abused, absolutely abused.
That
Sitting
video
in
that,
the
yeah,
chair in triage, this baby's coming out. Listen to her. She knows what's happening. Like what? Like that, but that's and I'm not saying I really want to be very careful. I love the institution that trained me. I have a tremendous amount of respect. I still am attending staff there. I don't do obstetrics anymore. And I am proud to be affiliated with the institution. And the institution, by the way, pivoted and learned from the community and listened. The community complained. Doulas came in more in force. Women in the community said, hey, we got to do better here. And they did. They took birthing balls, aromatherapy, I totally, it's a different labor and delivery than the labor and delivery I was trained in. So institutions can change when individuals within that institution have voices that are heard. But I will say that, this idea that like the woman doesn't know what she's talking about. I mean, we're collaborators. We need to be.
that's the word. And it doesn't have to be this antagonistic
It doesn't.
situation where it's one or the other. And it's
Oh,
not just about childbirth, right? It's not
oh,
just about
no. Oh
childbirth.
my God.
It's
Not at
about
all.
all of our care. It's about the idea that it doesn't have to be, oh, you're super woo over here with this crackpot stuff, or you're into conventional medicine.
Right.
You can take from A and B. And I think most of us who have any sort of sentience know that our doctors are so important and have probably saved our lives and saved our children's lives. Absolutely. And we can still be critical of the systems, and we can still also say we want to have a voice in our own
Yeah.
care, right? It
Well, the
doesn't
other thing
have
I
to
want to
be.
say, the systems are abusing the physicians. Okay. So here's the thing. I know where this was coming from. A lot of it was coming from fear. Like, this is the way we do it, and we do it this way because it's safe. And the thing is, we know things and see things that you guys just are never going to see, and you shouldn't have to see. I mean, we see some crazy, scary, bad stuff happen. So, but we have to, there's also like the legal system. And I know there was this big controversial article about fetal heart monitoring, but fetal heart monitoring is a disaster. Okay. So, and obstetricians get sued more than any other field, I think, other than neurosurgery. So, you guys want us to do everything and then also it's our fault. So that's also completely unfair and makes no sense. So we have to meet somewhere in the middle. And so people have to understand that an environment in which patients are being dismissed is an environment in which physicians and nurses are being dismissed. It's not coming from nowhere. And people feel like they have to protect what they're doing, and they really do. Their intention is to do the right thing. But when we can't talk about these things honestly, we have a big problem. And I think all I took from that was not like, oh, you guys are all wrong. No, what I took from it was like, whoa, we need to step back. If it's not an absolute emergency, we need to take time and have a conversation. Period. End of sentence. That's it. That's really all I did. I think that's what made me a really good obstetrician.
Which is so, it seems so simple. It seems so simple, and yet it is radical. And
Mhm.
it's very sane, which I love. This is why I love talking to you, Suzanne, because it is just very sane and very reasonable. And it is not, we're not talking about extreme interventions, or we're not, like I said, we're
No.
not on the far side of woo-woo. It's just about saying we all want to just work together. We
Yeah.
really, I think most of us do. And I think most of us are really well intentioned on all sides of healthcare. I haven't spoken to you in a long time. I haven't spoken to you since the new administration. I want to ask you, because you and I have had a lot of conversations over the years about
Yeah.
abortion care.
Yeah.
I want to know, you've taught me so much, Suzanne, what it looks like for you right now as an OB-GYN, looking at where we are in your personal microcosm experience, what you're seeing.
I mean, here's the thing. I made a change in my practice at the end of last year. So I have a much smaller practice, and so I have much smaller volume, and I'm seeing fewer patients. But having said that, I had 24 years of a very high volume practice. I'm an abortion provider. I'm trained as an abortion provider. In my previous office, we did abortions in the office and continued to do so. And I believe I'm sure they continue to do so. But the environment has absolutely changed. And where it was like a given that, like, if you're doing full scope OB-GYN, why would you not offer those services? I have colleagues who in other parts of the country who are under the threat of not only going to jail forever, but like death penalty. South Carolina has that on the table for physicians and humans who decide to get health care. It's absolutely insane. I think immediately when Dobbs came through, we all were getting calls of like, so and so's in this state, can you get them to that state? People whose kids were in college in states that don't have sane healthcare policy, because abortion care is healthcare, and it's insane to deny people. We've seen people die. You know, I'm in California, so you can still get abortion care here, but it's definitely under threat. And I will tell you that in the building that my previous practice is in, a abortion clinic that does later term abortions was supposed to come, actually was, they had space leased to them, and there were protests and protesters that came to the building and scared the other tenants, and the tenants of the building told the huge is a big corporate, you know, leasing companies, all they manage huge commercial properties all over the country. They canceled the lease
Yeah.
in the
And
city of Beverly Hills.
right, this
And
is
they
what,
and they bullied and harassed the city council to make that happen.
yeah,
So
this
this
is
is
one
so
of the
it doesn't
things.
matter if you're in a state where you have legal protection, they have other ways of preventing women from getting care. It's
If you're in
very,
a
very
if you're in a
dangerous.
state that has legal protections, if you're in a city that you think is
Mhm.
blue, and because you know what, it's that kind of intimidation against providers. It's the dwindling number of people who are
Oh
providing
yeah.
abortions, which is
Where are people getting trained?
we're getting fewer people going into practice, and it's the Catholicizing of our hospital systems.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's, that is a brutal combination. And I think all of us need to be aware that anyone who is pregnant or could become pregnant needs to know this.
Yeah. Excuse me, people do need to know where they're getting their care. That's a really interesting comment about like hospital ownership and the consolidation of hospital care. So when I started my career, I worked at a large hospital downtown Los Angeles that at the time was owned by Catholic Healthcare West. I don't even know what they are now, but you know, and it was crazy because I was coming from an academic institution. It was a private hospital that was an academic institution where we did everything. When I got there, like it's fairly common for people to consider getting a tubal sterilization at the time of birth. And they had all these weird rules about it. It was kind of crazy. And the hospital downtown was serving, you know, poor patients, indigent patients, people with emergency medical, a big Latino population. And, you know, these were patients that actually wanted and needed sterilization. We did not do abortion services at all there. But they had these crazy Byzantine, like you could get the tubal ligation, and I can't remember because it's like 25 years ago. You can get it if you just had the baby, but you can't get it like later, like some bullshit, excuse me. I was like, this is so hypocritical. Are we doing them or not? Like I wasn't, you know, like what? But there were all these, and I in retrospect, I appreciate that obviously somebody in administration was like, we have to provide these women with sterilizations, like they need them, they want them, and they've got Medi-Cal, we have to be able to do it. So there must have been some workaround. And obviously now I see somebody was like, we got to do something. And they were obviously flying under the radar in some way. I'm sure that doesn't happen anymore. But even then, and people didn't realize like that's the canary in the coal mine. Like women don't have access.
That's
And
what
I
it
think when
is.
you and I first met, I was telling you when I was in medical school, I was very involved in abortion rights, and I was involved in a pro organization called Medical Students for Choice that had been started by medical students. And actually, Warren Buffett was the original funder. I don't want to, I mean, outing him, I don't know, whatever. He was in our mind, we were like, thank you.
Thanks, Warren
And
Buffett.
and I learned at that time that even at that time, and this is the mid 90s, something like 15% of American counties had abortion services.
Right,
Even then, we had a problem.
right. This is
I don't know why people were shocked by Dobbs. I'm going to be honest with you. It's just like as a human, I was annoyed. I was like, we have been shouting about this. OB-GYNs have been killed over this. And now you guys are clutching your pearls. Thanks a lot. Where were you 25 years ago?
50 years ago. It was a 50-year, it was
Well,
never,
the minute,
it never
yeah,
felt secure. And here we are now.
people took it for granted and they were
Yeah.
shocked. And it was
It
like,
it
you're not
never
listening.
ever fails to shock me because I am shocked that my daughters and my mother had about the same options for
Yep,
abortion services. And
yep,
I got to slide in this golden
yeah,
period
yeah,
where my friends and I had the security and the
yeah,
safety of knowing that we had abortion access. And
yeah.
I don't take that for granted. And you and I are
No,
very close in
yeah,
age. We
yeah.
are, we're in a very privileged generation. And speaking of age, because you're the menopause queen,
Oh,
I
am
feel
I?
like you are to me. You are to me. I think childbirth, postpartum, menopause, they all feel like they're on, obviously they are on a spectrum, but they're all on a continuum that we don't necessarily connect the dots to
Yes.
in our own lives. We don't
Yeah.
see, it was shocking to me to understand how those experiences really are very close in terms of what your body goes through, the
Yes.
exciting wild ride you go on. Talk to me a little bit. It makes me happy that people are talking about menopause now in a way that I've never seen in my lifetime. But I feel like there's still so much that is couched in shame, in ignorance,
No.
in fear of asking the questions. What do we get wrong? What do we, as a society, as just a world, like we don't know? We don't talk about it. What surprises you when women come to you and say, "Holy shit, what's happening to me?"
Well, I mean, I think sometimes because I am living in an echo chamber, sometimes I'm surprised repeatedly by like how little people know about their own bodies, how poor the care is that they've gotten previously, how confused they are, how confused their clinicians and their doctors are. So, I mean, that all day, every day, and I hear stuff. And I'm living in a large city where you would think people have a lot of access to, excuse me, great care, and they don't, it turns out.
Suzanne,
I mean,
I have never had a doctor ask me about menopause. Never.
wow.
I've never had one of my doctors.
Seriously?
Nope. I know.
Like,
I mean,
what?
my gynecologist, yeah, but like any of my other healthcare providers, no, including
Wow.
while I had cancer.
Wow. Wow.
I always tell people I had to talk about my bowels every week, but
Right.
no one ever said what's going on with your periods, what's going on with your menstrual cycles.
Wow. And so,
Not
and
once.
this is a big conversation that a lot of us in the field are having specifically. And I think because I am a breast cancer survivor, and so I interact a lot with other experts in that area and with other patients. I mean, this whole how are we taking care of our patients who are being rendered menopausal because of their cancer treatments or who are entering into menopause during or after and need different kind of care. Like there's a big conversation brewing about that, which I think is really important. But I'm shocked repeatedly at how little people know. And I think the reason that people don't know a lot is that women's bodies are somehow scary. I'm sorry, I keep coughing.
No,
We are taught culturally to be ashamed of our bodies. I mean, my personal belief is that because we are so powerful, we're that power instead of being leveraged and collaborated with is viewed as a threat. And so it has to be suppressed and oppressed and misnamed and disinformed and quieted. So if that's the culture in which we're raised, we're not going to be learning very much or learning enough. And we're not, and then when our bodies are changing, we haven't been instructed about that. We haven't been talking about that. One of the best things that I think is happening, and you and I have had this conversation more than once, and that's how we met, is that I think social media has been great at opening conversations, at democratizing conversations, at getting information out there. Everybody's really involved in screaming about misinformation and disinformation. And yeah, there's misinformation and disinformation out there. There's also a lot of really good information. And I think women are smart. Like, like why are we again gatekeeping and diminishing and dismissing women's capacity to access information?
yeah, I'll tell you what I think my two theories about that are. One, the lack of curiosity from the greater medical world about women's bodies in general, the
Yeah.
patriarchal disinterest in our bodies.
Yeah.
And also, I think it also comes down to the fear that women have of acknowledging that they are aging. Because if I'm aging, if I'm menopausal, I am unfuckable. And if I am
Yeah.
unfuckable,
Yeah.
I am unemployable.
Oh no, but that's true, and that's actually borne out.
It's
There's research
true.
on it, and a lot of times when I present on that, and again, I get a blind spot sometimes because like my decision to go gray had absolutely zero impact on my career. In fact, it may have made my career even better because as a physician, I'm seen as older and I know more. Whereas if I'm in the boardroom or I'm like I presented at United Talent Agency, I'm that weird doctor that has 5 agents. So they asked me to present at their like lunch and learn. And I said to them, I'm like, me going gray is totally different than you as an agent going gray. I get it. You're a TV executive. You don't want to do that. You don't want to signal that you're on your way out and and that, but again, I also feel like we have to take part in that and we have to look at how are we presenting ourselves? Because if we continue to go along with that narrative, we're part of the problem. The patriarchy is the ultimate problem there. But I don't know. I find menopause to be this really interesting, enlightening, empowering experience for me and for a lot of other women where they do find their voice. They return to something of more of an authentic self and they are less afraid and they do use their voice. And then maybe they're pivoting, maybe they're evolving, maybe they're doing something different than what they thought they would do. I don't mean to like be bypassing the challenges that actual people are having in their lives. But at a certain point, we have to be looking for solutions. And I do think, again, it gets back to collaboration, to the way women do talk to each other, to us reestablishing the conversation. So we were raised in an environment where we didn't talk about this, but now women our age are talking about this, and we're talking about it amongst ourselves. We're talking about it with younger women. And I do think that younger women are going to have a different experience because they are not going to go along with the program in the same way. I mean, this is, you can never blanket everybody, but there's a large number of women who are not accepting the narrative and not accepting the status quo and I mean, if you look at the FDA, okay, let's talk about we don't have to get too much into the FDA thing, but if you look at the FDA black box warning removal,
Hmm.
that was a direct result of women. Again, like I talked about labor and delivery changing at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center and normalizing all these other female experiences. You can say whatever you want about this administration, but the fact is that they were listening. Women got online, experts got online, researchers got together, doctors got together, policymakers got together, and women just didn't shut up. And it took 20 years.
Right.
But that was a direct result of people collectively gathering voices. That is 100% what happened. Because this is not the first time that an expert panel was convened and went to the FDA to try to overturn this box warning. It happened 10 years ago in a different administration.
Hmm.
So, this is about like there was just a tipping point.
Yeah.
So
And I
it
think
isn't really, it's not true that we can't do anything. It's hard. It's hard to do something.
it's hard and it takes a really long time. And it's about, I think, simultaneously, how do we normalize these experiences that our bodies go through? How do we
Yeah.
make it clear that this is what's supposed to happen and it's okay? And also acknowledge that these things need to we need to have treatment, we need to have
Oh yeah.
care, we need,
We have no budget for women's health.
right,
I mean,
right.
because of what happened, it was an excuse because the fact is that there wasn't funding for women's health anyways. When I was in medical school when there was a requirement to include women in clinical trials. That means that women did not have to be included in clinical trials for medications that women are taking
Until
today.
the mid 90s.
Yeah. I was in medical school when that happened, okay? But I was also 9 years old, apparently, when women were allowed to open their own bank account
Right, and
and
get
have
our
a
own
mortgage,
mortgages and
which
get our
blows me
own
away. I was
checking,
like,
right,
wait a second.
get our own
My
credit
mom
cards.
had 2 kids and all this responsibility, and she couldn't have a credit card on her own?
Oh yeah.
What
Yeah,
the
and
heck?
I mean, I want to tell you, when we decided as a country that married women can be raped, that's also another one that I think only came about in the 80s.
I
All of
remember
these
that.
things that we sort of now we live with are
Right.
still very
Yeah,
recent.
they're new.
They're very new. And the exciting thing is that means that other things are coming down the road as well for us.
I hope.
What I love talking to you about is it's not all, there's so much that scares me. As a
Yeah.
mother of daughters, there's so much that scares me. As a person who has a uterus, it still scares me. And what you're talking about, the fact that we are breaking down these walls of silence and shame and sharing information with each other and checking in with each other and saying, wow, when I went through that, I felt like I was losing my mind, or, I was going through X or Y or Z. What do you do? What do we do about these things? We don't have to suffer in
No,
silence.
no. There's no there you're not getting a gold star for that.
So tell me one before we go. Yeah, well, but our moms would have said we would have. So
Yeah, but
that's
when
the
we love
problem.
them, but like that didn't work out
It didn't work out
as
great
far
for
as
them.
I can tell.
Tell me one thing before we go. One thing that right now today is giving you hope, Suzanne.
Oh, you know what? I just came off of a 2.5 week trip where I had a girls' trip with two very dear friends. I was in Mexico for Dia de los Muertos, which was very spiritual and meaningful. And then I was helping co-hosting a women's retreat in the same city that I was in. And then I went to my dear friend Vonda Wright had a big event called the Women's Health Conversation. So I spent all this time collectively with different groups of women. And I think I'm really on this like tip of like women collectively can really do something. That's really exciting. And the other thing is that I'm working on my next book on plant medicine. My background is in integrative medicine and Ayurveda, which is the ancient traditional medical system of India. And I'm super excited because I'm getting to delve back into my first love, which was indigenous health and indigenous medicine and where medicine comes from. Modern medicine comes from indigenous medicine. It didn't plop into some white guy's brain in, 1912. That's ridiculous. Like people have been interacting with the planet and the environment and specifically with plants for our entire time on the planet and figuring out, hey, this one makes you sick and this one makes you well. But so this has been really exciting. And it kind of taps back into the collective too, because to me, when we tap into our history, when we tap into respect for wisdom and for elders, this is the path forward, in my opinion. When we reintegrate ourselves into nature, which is we are part of nature, we do much better. And when we're not so much fighting against everything, everything isn't about fighting and conflict, it's about collaboration. The plants collaborate with one another and collaborate with us. And I don't really care if that sounds corny because it's true.
Nope.
So, and Simon and Schuster agreed. So,
Hell
so I'm
yeah.
excited
Hell
about
yeah.
it. That book will be coming out in early 2027. I'll come back and talk about it,
You bet you
but watch
will.
for more. That's been really gratifying. And I think the last kind of collective power thing I'm doing is my work with Monarch. It's a company that does operational services to help move women's health physicians into membership practices where they can focus more on the practice of medicine and not so much on the delivery, which we're not good at. And that is a solution, I think, for some people in a broken healthcare system. And I've been going around the country and talking to doctors and hearing their stories, which sound like my stories.
Yeah.
And again, destigmatizing, I am a storyteller in a doctor's body. I don't know what to say. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, no, you're a great storyteller and it's important and we need that. The narrative belongs in medicine, right? We need to be telling stories and we need to be understanding our healthcare in the context of our story. And we need to be listening to each other. We need our providers to be listening to the story because it's not just about the cancer or the pregnancy or the menopause. It's about the person inhabiting it and seeing
Absolutely.
seeing that narrative. And also, as you said, our doctors aren't the enemy. Like most of them are really not the
No,
enemy. They're
no.
not. And that's why it's so important to talk to people like you to understand that we're all working within this very broken, insane system.
Yeah.
And we're all trying to do our best. And it's really challenging. And the more that we can collaborate and be transparent and talk to each other and work together, the better our odds are for all of us. Suzanne, all right. Please don't make me wait a year to talk to you again, though. Please. Okay? Please don't make me wait a year. Suzanne, I'm
I won't.
so excited for everything. But in the meantime, we have to wait a year for the new one. I can't wait because I love to talk about my doshas. But in the meantime, you can absolutely read Menopause Boot Camp. You can maybe sign up for one yourself. And it's just an absolute pleasure. What a joy to talk to you, Suzanne. Have a
Oh,
great
it's so
rest
good to talk to
of your
you.
busy California day.
Thank you.